Okay, you can start the meeting whenever.
Okay, good deal. So let's start the meeting. Welcome to the April meeting of the CB6 Transportation Committee. My name's Gene Santoro. I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at what my computer says is 7:03 p.m. Members of the public, tonight we're joined by Community Associate Brendan Berth and Vice Chair Phil Napolitano. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussions, we will field questions from the public. I'm going to lay down some ground rules in front of each section of this meeting about what that public participation will be. Keep in mind that all questions are recorded and will be followed up if they're significant, even after the meeting, even if they're not answered during the meeting. Okay. Tonight, Ronnie White has volunteered to take minutes. Thank you, Ronnie. Procedural stuff, you should all have received emails from the board office with a link to a Doodle sign-up sheet for 2021 minutes takers. It is also being posted in chat, even as I speak. At the direction of the board chair, each committee meeting must have a designated minutes taker and a backup. So please make sure you sign up for as many slots as you can. If more than 2 people sign up for 1 month, the office will redistribute that fairly and let you know what happens. Please sign up ASAP. The link is in chat now. Okay, we've got that done. Now it's time for Brendan to take attendance. He will conduct the roll call.
Okay, committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Joan Berenbaum.
Present.
B. Disman.
Present.
Charles Hernandez.
Present.
Andrew Gross.
Present.
Yusuf Khalid.
Present.
Sandy McKee. Sandy.
Sorry, technical problems. I am here.
No problem. Phil Napolitano.
Yes, present.
Matt Roberts.
Present.
Gene Santoro.
Here.
Larry Shire.
Present.
Ann Seligman.
Present.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Ronnie White.
Present.
And James Wilson.
Present.
We have quorum.
Excellent. Okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen before you. Look, there it is. Okay. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Okay, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from last meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board's office as well. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Okay, seeing no objections, the minutes are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. Okay, here are the general ground rules that we go through every month. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. 1, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. You don't have to click the participants icon anymore. There's a separate icon there for raising your hand. 3, the chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks must be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. 4, when a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. 5, we are required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting. So please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. And now we can go to the order of the adopted agenda, which we will be following. Brendan, if you'd like to put that up there so that everybody can see what it is.
Sorry, can you say that again, Gene?
Would you put the agenda up there so everybody can see what it is? We're starting with the DDC presentation. I'll skip the screen. We know what it is. So let's just turn this over to Desiree and her crew, which I might add is redoubtable. I don't know, you have 13 people signed up, Desiree, tonight? Something like that. We were talking about choosing up sides for a ball game after the meeting, but I can't play. So.
Yeah, Gene, I don't think all 13 people are on, but we do have quite a few folks here.
Okay, but you are going to keep it to the 15 minutes we agreed on.
Yes, 100%. Let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. Look okay?
So far.
Great. And Gene, I am so sorry to hear about your accident. I do hope you do a swift recovery.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Once again, my name is Desiree Gazzo from HNTB Lero, the program manager, construction manager for the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm joined by our colleagues at DDC and DOT to provide a few short project updates. We have a handful of slides and we'll run through them pretty quickly and then take questions.
Okay, let me just interrupt you there for a minute. I mean, there are no questions during the presentation. After the presentation, we will take questions from the committee. If there's any time left over, we will take questions from the public, 1 question apiece at most. As I said before, all questions are being recorded. And so if we miss any questions, we'll be able to answer them after the meeting following up through the office. Okay, Desiree, back to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Gene. So quick first bullet here. There was a request to coordinate with Google Maps to have the Greenway detour updated there. We did that last week. So I've looked personally, that is good to go. So it does show the closed detour between 20th and 23rd Street. So quick update there. We're going to go through 1 or 2 slides for the traffic shift at East 23rd, and then we'll talk about really what everybody wants to talk about is just the 18th to 20th Street, 18th to 23rd Street temporary bike lane. So first, we just wanted to remind everybody, as of last week, the traffic pattern at East 23rd Street and Avenue C under the FDR Drive shifted. So the work has changed a little bit. I don't know if you've had a chance to drive or ride or walk down there, but again, please do heed all signage that's there and the traffic folks that are helping assist the pedestrians and vehicles. This will be in effect for several weeks, and then we will shift back to working on the south side of the intersection, and that will be about April 22nd. We had an advisory go out that I believe said the shift was going to happen about a week earlier. New schedule discussions have provided us more information, and it looks like that shift will happen not until the week of April 22nd. Again, please reach out with any specific questions, but basically we just hope that everyone follows the signage in this intersection. Again, it is a very complicated intersection to begin with, and then the construction here makes it a little bit more difficult. But we are, again, coordinating with DOT on the signage. We have the traffic folks there to help pedestrians and vehicles. And we do, again, please ask that everyone, bikers, bicyclists, and vehicular traffic folks, do pay attention to the folks that are trying to help move the traffic along. Okay, so the PA2 Greenway detour. this is, as we all know, what the Greenway detour looks like now. From the south heading north, we go up, we use 20th Street to 1st and 2nd Avenue. And then again, from the north heading south, we use East 37th Street to 1st and 2nd Avenue. And then there is local southbound traffic here past Waterside over to Astor Levy Playground, and then the Greenway is closed here. So this is where we are currently. We presented with DOT a couple of months ago, and they presented their new or updated bike lane for Houston Street and Avenue C. As you can see here, this is basically the same map that we were just looking at. However, it has that Avenue C bike access that comes in just above Murphy Brothers Playground here. So currently, bicyclists that are using, or and when that Avenue C, when that comes online, folks can use the Avenue C, connect on the Greenway here at this area here, just at 18th Street, just before, it's that right Avenue C loop, 18th Street, just before getting on to the access, the detour at 20th Street. So the question that had come up, and we understand there was the letter, etc., was to look at kind of this area under the FDR Drive between East 18th Street and East 23rd Street, and that we have been doing, again, in coordination with our DDC folks, DOT, and the contractor. So the next slide here, and this is really, again, what we've been trying to work out as a group. This shows the construction interferences at the East 18th intersection, and then between the East 20th and East 23rd Street. So both for project area 2, which we are currently in, and then again for parallel conveyance, which will come on board later this year. There is utility work that will be happening in the locations here that are in red. So this is again at the East 18th intersection, and then between East 20th and East 23rd Street. And the first of these, again, in the red boxes that are there, are for PA2, and that will be the utilities and manhole combined sewer overflow work and MPT. And this will start in the next 3 or 4 months. And then next year, we'll begin the kind of major sewer work for parallel conveyance in 2022, again, in those same kind of red boxes. Once the pile driving begins, which it is beginning this week, in the Solar One area, that area under the FDR Drive will also be heavily used for staging of equipment, for staging of materials and equipment rather, and then the Avenue C will be, again, more heavily used for the equipment for construction. So while, again, for the past several months, we have been coordinating whether that, bikeway under the FDR would work, it is just not feasible due to the construction activities that are going to have to occur here in the next couple of months. And then again, when parallel conveyance comes on board in 2022, we are still coordinating with DOT to talk about other options that, may be possible. I'll let DOT jump on here in a second, but, we did, again, coordinate through all levels of DOT and DDC to look at this and determine whether or not it is feasible. So again, I think, that's the most I could say at this point. DOT, Neg, I know you're on. I don't know if you had anything to add.
Yeah, thanks, Desiree. Neg LeCoux, Senior Project Manager for DOT ESCR related issues. I think I just want to reiterate what Desiree was hinting at. We did explore under the FDR. It didn't seem to be feasible due to construction activity. However, do want to underscore that we were able to coordinate with the contractor to understand that the Esplanade is still open between 18th and 20th. So the Avenue C proposed bike lane, when it is installed, will have connection to make that connection to 20th Street, at least for the next year. As construction starts to advance, we will continue to coordinate and see what other options are available, specifically around 18th to 20th when construction on the Esplanade starts. So I do want to underscore that we do have a connection from Ave C to 20th Street for at least a year now.
And, you know, I think that's what we essentially came here today to discuss. That is the last slide before we go into the need more information, visit us at the website, which I'm sure everybody is aware of. So I'll leave this up in case there are questions regarding this slide, and I could flip back and forth to the other ones as needed.
Okay, thanks, Desiree. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, Andrew has a question. Hi, Andrew.
Sorry, it's hard for me to move that fast.
Yeah. Oh, come on, man. I got a busted hip.
That's true. I shouldn't complain. I just want to reiterate, Desiree, and I know that there was this letter, and I read the letter, and maybe Jean, if you have a different view on this, as always, please share your thoughts. I felt like the letter really didn't answer didn't respond, in my view, adequately to the complaint. Right, the complaint that I have, and I'm sure other people, a lot of thoughts, is I run all the time here, right? Like I am at this site probably 3 or 4 times a week, and every single time, and again, you guys can tell me that everything is being done, the maximum safety is being followed. That may be the case, but as somebody who's running through this, using the detour, I'm not like doing illegal things. I don't feel safe going through here. I feel like every time I'm going through here, I'm rolling the dice, and that is today going to be the day that my car gets fenced, by getting hit. I was one of the people who complained about the flaggers who were just standing around, like not doing their job. Again, not doing their job. I'm not saying, Desiree, that's on you, obviously, but I'm just telling you that's how I feel when I run through. When I cross at 23rd Street, I don't feel good.
Okay, and I can speak to, thank you, Andrew. And again, we apologize for, you feeling like that. I know we did look into the flagger complaint. And again, I think there was some confusion between the traffic assistants and the flaggers. And they are, just to clarify, there are 2 different groups of people who are out there. The TEAs who are put out by NYPD. And I think the picture, and again, I know there have been 1 or 2, but one of the photos that we received were with the TEAs and not the flaggers, who again, the flaggers are kind of supervised by the contractor. So we did look into that last week, and we did bring that to the attention of the contractor. Ahmed, I don't know if you have anything that you want to say to that, but I know we did, take that and responded to that. And then that is kind of a continued something that we're looking at. We did talk to or speak with DOT about additional signage potentially for that intersection and within Cycle Park, which we're working on as well. But again, I guess, Neg, I don't know if you have anything else to say about.
Desiree, can I just encourage something as before your colleague steps in? I don't know if you have or whoever, but I would encourage you or whoever, the people in charge of the project, to go and spend like 20, 30 minutes between the hours of like 6, 7 p.m. when people are very active, or in the morning when people are very active. Watch how people move across that intersection. I don't think it's going the way that it's supposed to go. people do what they want to do, kind of, and there's a lot of it's very intense crossing there.
Okay, Andrew, this is Ahmed, Senior Construction Manager with the project. Thank you for bringing that concern. We usually finish our work shift 7 to 3:30, from 7 to 3:30, but I stay and I have people stay all the way up to like all the 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock p.m. to make sure that the flaggers who are there are doing their job. We're not there every day, every minute, but when we were there, we observed them doing a decent job. I'm not going to say they are doing the best job. There were incidents that we had to bring to their attention and to their supervisor that they were not doing what they're supposed to do. And we had meetings with them. We have every day with them like a meeting at the beginning of their shift to make sure that they understand their tasks. They know their locations where they have to station, and if they need to leave the site or they need to do anything that will take their focus away from keeping people safe, they have to just call the office, have somebody else replace them. I promise we will look into this more serious, and we are looking at it every day, but we will look at it more serious. And if there's anything we can do, we'll definitely not hesitate to do it. If somebody's not doing his job, we're going to replace him. And I made that clear to the contractor, and we are looking at them. And I appreciate the concern that you're bringing up.
Okay, thank you. Anne?
Hi, so my question is not strictly about this presentation, but it is about this area. And it's kind of about Solar One and the issues around their lack of access
Anne?
to
I'm sorry,
utilities.
that's not Anne. I'm sorry, that isn't actually on this agenda for that. That's a land use issue.
Well,
I
I mean, it is an issue that is relevant to this project area. So I'm just wondering, because I'm sorry, Gene, if I could just finish my sentence, I would really appreciate it.
It's a land use committee issue. It is not a transportation committee issue.
Yes, and that's how I started. But what I'm saying is, we felt 2 weeks ago on land use, we are all one board. We felt it was of enough concern that we didn't want to wait for a full board meeting to do a reso, so we did a letter. So I was just wondering if any of the folks here, or if Adam, who I see is, a participant, has any updates for those of us who are concerned about this as a really important issue. And hopefully it will just take a couple of minutes.
Brendan, please mute Ann. Thank you. Okay. I have a follow-up question about the transportation issue. I understand this map, and I understand what you're saying. I'm going to reiterate one more time that for all your planning, what I see is people riding their bikes and jogging in the street and on the sidewalk up Avenue C in traffic. So for all your signage and all your plans, it's not working. That's all I have to say, because I'm not Sisyphus. I'm not going to keep rolling this stone up the hill. We'll see what the casualties are as the season starts to ramp up. All right. Thank you for coming with the presentation. Unless there are any other questions, we're done. Okay, thanks for coming, folks. Appreciate it. Brendan, let's move on to the Union Square presentation.
Hey, Jean. Hi, Community Board 6. This is Jennifer Falk. I'm with the Union Square Partnership. Thank you for having us this evening. We know this has been a really difficult year for a lot of people, and so we really appreciate the Community Board's time in hearing our agenda item this evening. As more and more people are getting vaccinated and the weather's getting better, we're really looking forward to spring.
It does.
I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ed Janoff, who will run through the presentation. I know I don't have to explain to anyone on this call what a business improvement district is or who the Union School Partnership is, but we've been around since 1976. This particular project that you're going to hear about this evening is the culmination of a robust amount of community outreach that we did in the 2018-2019 period. We reached out to over 1,000 stakeholders through large community forums, smaller pop-ups, including in residential lobbies. We did an online survey, and we pulled together what we hope will be the framework for eventual project work that we do in the district. We're building on our success of the renovation of the north end of Union Square Park. Some of you may remember that the Union Square Partnership was responsible for the renovation of the park's pavilion, the playground, the North Plazas, and then in partnership with DOT, we installed the DOT Plaza on Broadway between 17th and 18th Street. And so we're looking towards the future, and we're looking towards getting as much community feedback on the presentation that we're going to show you today. We know that time is limited, so I will just say up front that we will also be sending a survey after the presentation. So if any individuals on the community board have thoughts about the presentation after we're done, please also share them with us via our online survey, because we really want to make this the best possible plan. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ed Janoff.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, Community Board 6. Thank you for having us tonight. Tally, if you are running the show, can you advance the slide? Yeah, it looks like Tally's having an issue. I'm going to take over. That's why we do that. All right. So what I'm going to go through this material rather quickly. The vision plan is available on the website, but I'll leave plenty of time for questions in the end. So what I want to say is this vision plan was started in 2018 at a time when the neighborhood was on a really strong positive trajectory in terms of foot traffic, mass transit use, city bike ridership nearly doubling year over year. And that's a trajectory that, once COVID starts to dissipate, we expect will continue, because there's a lot of really strong investment coming into the neighborhood from the private sector, a Target coming into Zeckendorf Towers, the tech center opening next year, and a bunch of different mixed use projects throughout the neighborhood. The outreach portion of this vision plan development, as Jennifer said, was the most robust in the 40-year history of the partnership, with all kinds of different scales of engagement events, little pop-ups in the Green Market, in the lobbies of residential buildings, at subway stations, bus stops, etc. Survey, thousands of different interactions to try to get ideas about Union Square. I won't go through all of the different ideas, but open space and transportation were clearly two of the biggest things on people's mind. And we thought a lot about how Union Square as a neighborhood and a public space is affected by the intersection of the pedestrianization or future pedestrianization of the Broadway corridor and the busway that was implemented, two DOT projects moving forward over the past few years. We also thought a lot about the evolution of Union Square as a public space from a sort of a gated oasis into more of an open square that is, woven into the fabric of the neighborhood and integrated into daily use. Starting from the Green Market to the DOT temporary work, and how can we advance that for the value and benefit of the neighborhood and the city. So we created this vision statement that is really about trying to make Union Square as a neighborhood and a place as accessible and as inclusive as possible. And there's a number of goals in the vision plan, soft goals that help drive the design thinking. The design team, which was Marvel Architects, divided their ideas into these 5 discrete projects to help kind of organize our thinking in terms of sort of funding and building. The 5 projects are Union Square West, the Broadway Gateway, as Broadway kind of comes down into the square at 17th Street, 14th Street Boulevard, which is basically extending from First Avenue all the way to 6th Avenue. And then the Triangle Park, which is at 4th Avenue and 14th Street, which we really heard in the feedback was sort of the part of the park that people felt needed the most attention, just the east side of the park in general. And then also the 5th is just the park in general, the central park area. Tally, I am going to hand off to you, and I'm going to run this, so I will talk. But basically, I start here to show you concepts that the design team created for these 5 different projects, and Union Square West being first because this photo, I think, really shows a lot of what we're trying to address to respond to the feedback that we heard with urban design response. And so if you look at this photo, you see kind of from left to right, you see almost every different kind of paving style that you can have in New York City. You've got like a standard concrete sidewalk, a granite slab, asphalt, cobblestone, unit asphalt pavers, bluestone, hex pavers. You've got these granite blocks that were dropped to protect the public space from attack, and you see temporary planters from different eras of DOT projects. Basically, a lot of iterative, incremental stuff that's happened around the perimeter of the square over the last 2 to 3 decades. And I think the overarching theme is how can we make Union Square look and feel like one consistent, coherent space that is more friendly to pedestrians, more accessible, and supports bicycle and transit use. Tally, are you with us?
Hi, Ed, can you hear me? I'm having some technical difficulty.
Yep.
Okay, great. If it cuts out, please continue on. Thank you, Ed, and thanks again to the committee for having us this evening. I'm going to quickly walk through a series of aspirational images that the design team created, which will illustrate the vision plan's 5 major projects. So as Ed mentioned, our goal is to create a unified design and palette that treats the space as an extension of Union Square Park. And you can see on the after image of Union Square West, there's a single paving material extended from Union Square Park out to the building edges. Here, the designers are showing hex pavers, which is a typical standard for New York City parks, but the idea is to create a seamless, unified look and feel. And we believe that this could be achieved using a variety of unified paving material. So Marvel designed these custom raised planters with seating components. There's also the potential to include trees here, even though we may not be showing trees in all of the renders, we would like to increase the amount of trees where possible. We're showing the green market extended down Union Square West with potentially new and unified canopies. There are retractable bollards to prevent through traffic, but will allow for emergency vehicles to access the buildings as needed. The designers are also showing 2-way bike access, which has a precedent at City Hall Plaza. And there is still a lot of discussion to be had with the DOT about safe interaction between bicycles and pedestrians in a shared space like this. And we will continue to refine the design as we have these discussions. You can go to the next slide. Another view of Union Square West here. What we'd like to point out is the fact that the expansion of pedestrian realm along Union Square West provides an opportunity to create a renovated subway entrance at 16th Street and Union Square West that's ADA accessible. So we would like to see an escalator and elevator at this end of the station and believe it would significantly improve access to the northwest corner of the station and the square. Moving on to the Broadway Gateway Plaza at 17th Street. This is currently a DOT plaza that was installed about 8 or so years ago with temporary materials. The goal here is to make this temporary plaza into a permanent public space that feels connected to Union Square across 17th Street. So in the vision, you can see the custom raised planters, and the paving is continued across to Union Square North across 17th Street. You can also see in the background the green market with unified canopies. And there's a concept for a new subway entrance, and we're using 2nd Avenue just as an example. The next slide. Here's the plan and axon view. You can see that the design preserves bike access on Broadway and two-way bike lanes on 17th Street. 17th is treated as a shared street with continuous at-grade paving between the plaza and Union Square Park. And this street will allow for taxis or for-hire vehicles to access the street, but at reduced speeds. Next, we're looking at 14th Street, looking west with Union Square's South Plaza, just to the right. Even though the 14th Street busway is now a permanent program, it still has temporary materials to delineate the bus lanes from the pedestrian zones. So if you go to the next slide, you can see our vision for the 14th Street Boulevard. We're again looking to make these temporary materials permanent and unified with the larger design. So the paving is extended from Union Square Park across 14th Street to the building edges. There are planter benches to provide additional seating and greenery. And these planters can also be used as roadway barriers to break up the row of bollards that would be required. We're essentially looking at doubling the width of the sidewalk, taking over the footprint of the current busway pedestrian zones. The goal here is to provide more breathing room on the block, which can get pretty congested, especially near the subway and retail entrances. And in this view, you can also see that the treatment would be extended south to University as well. Next slide. So here we're looking at Triangle Plaza, which is the island between Broadway and Union Square East in the southeast corner of the park. We heard a lot from the community about the east side of the park and sort of the conditions that exist there. And some of the issues are with visibility, poor circulation, poor irrigation. It's difficult for plants to thrive, and it's detached from the main public space. So on the vision, you can see the design team is imagining a seamless connection across the roadway. And the vision is to open up the park to create a clear pathway and desire line through to Union Square's South Plaza. So the seating is oriented outward to the surrounding streets to create better visibility and circulation throughout. And here on this axon, you can see a little bit more clearly this connection from Union Square Park to the triangle. We can speak a little bit more on this idea a little bit later on, but essentially we're joining the triangle to Union Square to create even more pedestrian accessible space. Now we are zooming out so you can see the aerial view of 14th Street facing west. And if you flip to the vision, you can see there's a unified paving scheme extended from Union Square across 14th Street to the building edges. The roadbed is elevated to pedestrian grade to create a seamless transition across the roadway. The design team also drew inspiration from the existing radial elements in the South Plaza and extended them out literally into the neighborhood to create a feeling of one large public space. There are raised planters throughout with integrated seating. Again, these could all have trees. The sidewalks are doubled in width on each side of 14th Street to ease some of the congestion. And on the South Plaza, especially, this extra space would create more room for people watching performances and other programs. The final project focuses on park infrastructure. And this section identifies existing infrastructure throughout Union Square Park in need of upgrades. So some examples include looking at a tree succession plan to preserve the existing canopy, renovating amenities such as bathrooms, the dog run, upgrading landscaping and pathways, lighting, utilities, and drainage. So there's a lot of work an investment that we know needs to be made to maintain the basic infrastructure of the park, and that's why we're including it as a major project. And finally, in the vision plan, there is a streetscape toolkit. These are individual street furniture elements that are not site specific, but can be rolled out and implemented throughout the district. Outdoor seating is a big part of this. We wanted to preserve the great people watching opportunities that people love in Union Square. So here we have Marvel's planter bench, which draws inspiration again from the experience of people watching on the South Plaza. Marvel also designed a concept for parklets on the right side. The city calls this street seats. And the idea here is to create additional public spaces in the curb lane and incorporate existing tree pits to create these sort of mini parks along the streetscape. They're also looking at ideas to consolidate commercial waste in containers that would be stored in the curb lane. The goal is to get trash off the sidewalk to again create a better pedestrian environment. And here we have a map of security areas where we would consider different types of barriers or bollards depending on the site and access needs. We're also looking to do a lighting plan that will consider the interior of the park, streetscape, and building facades. We're emphasizing historic lighting, restoration of the pedestrian globes, current park lighting, facade uplighting to highlight some of the unique building features facing the park, and moonlighting from the surrounding buildings. And lastly, public art. So we have a few sites that are currently used for public art installations, but we feel because of the significant increase in public space, there could be several other sites that could be activated with artwork or other programming. So that was just an overview of the major projects and Streetscape Toolkit. So I'll hand it back over to Ed to wrap up and walk you through next steps.
Thanks, Tally. And in the kind of rush to get us in a 15-minute window here, I forgot to introduce you, but you are a planning associate at Union Square Partnership. So thank you, Tally, for that. And for the benefit of CB6, I'd just like to say that even though CB6 is really the eastern edge of our bid district, I think that the Streetscape Elements Toolkit, that kind of last section that Tally went through, the intention there is that those elements could be deployed, all the way to our First Avenue edge. So, even though a lot of the visuals here focus on, Union Square Park and the blocks around it, that has the potential to go, all the way to First Avenue. The back of the vision plan has this kind of matrix of priorities that lists all the projects and tries to show kind of which of our goals they'll hit and kind of how costly or complicated they are. We've estimated the cost of all this work, including a lot of the subway renovation work, to be upwards of $100 million. It's going to come from a variety of sources, some from the bid directly, some will probably do some private fundraising, and then an awful lot from government sources, particularly for things like the infrastructure. So right now we're in the process of kind of further developing those estimates and coming up with a fundraising strategy based on economic impact mainly. We're also in the process of hiring a landscape architect to do a master plan for those streetscape elements that, as Tally said, could be deployed anywhere. And then lastly, we're looking at doing some early kind of action projects this year, including the idea of potentially painting parts of the busway where there's pedestrian space. And this is not a proposal, just for reference. And then also, the idea of doing some of these parklets that the design team came up with, installing them in some areas up and down 14th Street. In terms of timeline, this is not when the plan is going to get built. This is just rollout of the vision ideas. Right now, tonight is the 6th of, I think, 8 community presentations that we're doing to just hear everybody's feedback on these ideas. This is a master plan that is probably 10 to 20 years worth of work. So we're really at the very beginning now. So we're really interested in hearing everybody's ideas, what people like and don't like and are concerned about. Some of the things that we've heard a lot about is people wanting to see potentially more greenery in some of the renderings. We've heard a lot. We've heard some questions, maybe some granular questions about traffic, which we're not quite ready to answer yet because it will require a more sort of detailed network analysis. But these are the sorts of things that we're hearing from the community now, and really interested to hear what you all have to say. I think most of all, we're really excited that, you know, people are appreciating, you know, the kind of the ambition of the plan and some of the, you know, specific pedestrian improvements. But again, looking at ways that we could be addressing ped, bike, and vehicle conflicts, and then different ways that we might be able to incorporate resiliency and sustainability into these into the vision. So that's some of what we've heard already, but really interested to hear what you guys might have in terms of questions tonight. So thank you. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Jean or the board.
Okay, thanks, Ed and Jennifer. Thank you guys for coming, and thanks for the presentation. It's really impressive. So we do have a lineup of questions. Brian, then Andrew, then Larry, then Youssef.
Hi. So I think that this general design vision, which I understand is not final implementation decisions, the overall vision does seem to be, you know, very pedestrian forward, and it really does seem to do a lot with this space in terms of making it open. It does not look like this was designed by cyclists. Union Square is a rather important part of the bike network in New York, and I am not seeing any sort of facilities in here that provide a safe cycling experience through or around the square. Actually, quite the opposite. I see a lot of concessions in the design on the bike-focused activities that seem to provide a pathway for cyclists, but either put them in bad positions or do not connect to the surrounding street grid the way that it needs to be connected. That needs to be much more seriously considered, and there need to be sort of harsher treatments. There should be pedestrian crossings for the bike lane, but bike lanes should, as a general rule, not be open up to pedestrian wandering. Bollards are not enough because pedestrians will aimlessly walk into bike lanes and create potential for collisions that can't be avoided. Bike lanes through areas like this need to be pretty well walled off with very limited opportunities for crossing. You can do something like put benches down and have the backs of the benches face the bike lane and create a corridor. There's some stuff in Battery Park where they do this pretty well. The bike lane's very bunkerized off from the rest of the pedestrian space, and that really works well because it provides a minimum of opportunities for conflict in that situation. If you could make those improvements to this plan, I think it's a big winner.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ed, did you have a response?
No,
I just wanted to say
just
thank.
taking notes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great. Okay, terrific.
valuable feedback.
Andrew, you're up.
Three things. One, I think it overall very cool, very important. Number two, there's like a lot to unpack here. Number two, I think just generally the bollards and the safety aspect that you guys are thinking about is the right way to go, right? Like I talk about this all the time. It is, from not just from like an accident, but from like a terrorism standpoint, right? From a malicious actor standpoint, very important that you guys are putting that thought in now, early in the process, as opposed to the NYPD coming to you later on and changing all your plans. So that's a really good thing. The third thing, the final point is, I think that you said this, and I may have missed it, but there's a cobblestone area. And I really think that it's important to preserve that as a piece of New York City history. I know it probably runs counterintuitive to this whole concept, but Union Square is the home of Tammany Hall. It's like a very important historic place in New York City. And I think that it is important to retain some of the old original qualities. Maybe there's a way like in other parts of the city where you keep the cobblestone, maybe you treat it somehow to like reflect it. But I think to just like bulldoze it out, sort of like I think kind of throws away a piece of history that's really cool and important, especially as a tourist site. That's it.
Thank you. That's excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll say, we're not, we're showing, Parks Department asphalt hex pavers here in the plan. We're not necessarily, married to any one paving. It's really shown to treat all of Union Square as one kind of room with a coherent and, consistent paving. So it feels like one square. What that is open for discussion. Although the cobblestones I know that are on Union Square West are actually not historic. I think those were installed in the 90s under Commissioner Benepe, kind of at the start of his administration, meant to pedestrianize that street. But an important goal of this plan will be to preserve historic elements throughout.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Larry, you're up.
Thank you. This is a transportation committee, and Community Board 6, many of us, we're about a mile east of Union Square. And Union Square is a tremendous attraction for us, the farmers market and with the stores and with the park itself. And getting there is the concern that doesn't seem to have been addressed by this presentation at all, and that is the 14th Street busway and where people will get off the bus and get on the bus to use this park. And there's a tremendous opportunity here to have a bus stop, a place for people to alight from the buses, and whether they're using the park or they're transferring to a subway line, the BMT or the IRT run through underground, to make those transfers convenient and inviting, which they are not today, would be something that would be a great accomplishment, would not take too much doing to accomplish, and you'll get a big bang for your buck. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We did have a conversation with MTA about the possibility of the bus stops being on the square as opposed to kind of at the edges, off the square where they are today. That's really a future conversation with DOT and, making sure that the busway works from a traffic and safety perspective, but definitely something we are open to.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, Youssef, you're on.
Yep. I wanted to make a comment on the sort of shared pedestrian and cyclist vision for Union Square Park West, because I know one of the comparison points was City Hall Park, which I have ridden through dozens of times and found to be quite difficult to navigate and to avoid pedestrians and folks in wheelchairs and children and that sort of thing. So I would push the group to think about just a better vision for that area, because as a cyclist, I certainly don't want to hurt anyone. And I recognize that it's still a fairly tight corridor. So some of the things that Brian brought up were helpful, but that would, I think, be a consideration for that side of the park.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ronnie, it's your turn. Ronnie?
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone. I think it's a great start. And the consideration for the planters, and it's comprehensive. I would like to see it a little more fleshed out with the lighting. I know, the balance between something that would be like a twilight type effect and reduction of light pollution in the evening would be great to have addressed without necessarily having to light up all the surrounding buildings. As well as what struck me is you have the uniformity going throughout this throughout the Union Square. However, it looks, with the planters and everything and the trees, it still looks barren, and I think it would be nice to see a focus on public art in that area, especially if it's something that can be rotated, and the focus on the park being interactive with the visitors. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay, Anne, you have your hand up. You're on.
Yeah, I would add to Ronnie's comment about, it looks a little bare. And I would say, I think, public art is a great idea. I hope also with some of the plantings that you're talking about putting in, as I always do, I'll ask that you think about native plants and bird-friendly plantings, bird pollinator in general, friendly plantings, and also ones that are hardy. I know the Parks Department is really paying attention to what plants will survive anticipated climate change. So yeah, so it's perfect that I'm on right after Ronnie for that.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. I want to thank you guys for coming. It's a really nice vision of the future, or the potential future. I think there've been some interesting ideas raised here tonight, and I know you're open to them, and that you've got a long way to go before you start doing any of this. So there's a lot of mulling of the process to go through.
And I just want to reassure everyone, we saw some of the questions in the Q&A. We wrote those down. We're going to add them to our list. We're also going to promise to come back to Community Board 6 before we propose anything that results in shovels in the ground. But we're really thankful for the Community Board's time and appreciate all these really incredible insights.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you.
Good luck with the fundraising.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have the DOT report. I see Colleen is here. She's hiding, but she's here.
Hi, Jean. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. So what have you got for us tonight? I have some questions but I'll let you start first.
Oh, Jean, I'm so sorry about your accident. I'm looking into it to find out. I'm going to have an inspector go to the site to take a look at it. I'm glad you're much better. One thing that I do want to let the board know is that we continue to go out and inspect and re-inspect outdoor dining for compliance. We've been busy with that. We've been busy with our milling and paving season, which have started. The other thing is that the 2021 Open Street applications is now open. We sent an email to the community board with the Open Street overview. It was a PDF, and we're encouraging folks to apply or to share this. It's for either temporary limited local access or as a temporary full closure. And I can forward you that one pager, Jean, so you can share it with the committee as well.
Terrific, thank you.
Overall, that's all I have. Except for good news for Larry, which I emailed him about the lights at the bus shelters, which have been fixed at 14th Street.
Good. Well, Larry's happy. That means we're all happy. Okay. I have a couple of questions to ask you. I know you sent out. We saw, at least some of us saw, the 20th Street redesign that's going to be launched. I'd appreciate it if we also sent that to the Stuyvesant Town Peter Cooper Tenants Association, to management there, so they're aware of it. I wasn't sure whether you had done that or not.
We did. I sent it to them, and I also sent it to Ben Jacobs in Councilmember Power's office.
Terrific. So we'll be posting that so that the members can see what that looks like as well.
Perfect.
It's a slight tweak of what exists there now. It is actually
and the folks from Stuytown were worried about, they wanted to know if the noise is going to be loud and obtrusive, and I mentioned no. And the work that they're planning is just going to be for like a day, I think, of minimal work, noisy work. It's not going to be that loud.
Right. Second thing was going to be about the 59th Street Bridge. We spoke about opening up the South Side roadway, and I wondered when you would have some sort of presentation for us on that.
So we are working with our Bridges Division in terms of finalizing that. I'm hopeful that we will come to the board before the summer is out. So I will get back to you on that timeline.
Okay. I think I CC'd you on an email about the Second Avenue proposal to widen the bike lanes there. We're not going to discuss that now, but you should be aware that that is going to be on our agenda sometime in the next couple of months to support our elected officials, or to discuss supporting our elected officials about that possibility.
Yes, and I share that with our bike division.
Terrific. Okay. I know we'd also asked you about a list of LPIs and bulb outs that exist in CB6 because this is something we're interested in expanding for pedestrian safety. Is that possible to get?
I can get you the list of the LPIs in the districts. I can find out about the bulb outs as well.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, and last but not least is the ever popular Street Ambassadors program. Is that going to be on for this summer? And if so, how do we get some?
I'm hoping that it's going to be on for the summer, depending on when we get back to the office. If you have locations that you want us to look at and work with the local precinct, can you email them to me and I will share it with my colleagues and I'll let you know about the scheduling of that?
Terrific. We can discuss that. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Thanks. Okay, Larry's got his hand up.
Colleen, do you have an update on the construction schedule for the Avenue C protected bike lane going from 14th Street up to your 20th Street?
I don't have the timeline, Larry, but I will find out and I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I think that takes care of that. Thanks, Colleen.
You're welcome, guys.
And we'll talk to you soon, as always. Okay, now is what's going to be, I'm sure, one of everybody's favorite parts, the 10 minutes where we focus on a couple of the district budget requests. Phil is going to be running this, so I'm going to sit here. Phil, it's all yours.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Gene. I'll try to make this a little animated, but I'll start by focusing your attention on the spreadsheet that Brendan has posted and the traffic study for Queens Midtown Tunnel. So this year, in 2020 rather, we were able to complete the Second Avenue, the bicycle lane that runs in front of the tunnel. And I think that was a big part of our focus of trying to look at QMT, the whole area really. But with that having been achieved, do we really want to allocate money to improve the area more so? And met, one major objective. And are there other areas within our district where the funds could be better spent? And that's, the answer to that question, that collective answer, will determine whether or not we leave this budget request on for the upcoming fiscal year. And if people have some comments on whether this is now one of the most pressing areas to allocate some funds and for DOT to study, now would be a good time to voice them. And we're all, I am certainly willing to listen and would like to hear your thoughts on whether we've made substantial progress and we and city agencies could focus on some other areas and make similar progress. So it's open for debate. We may not necessarily resolve it tonight, but if you have some thoughts, you're welcome to share them. You can email them to me and we can toss it around. But good work to everyone in 2020 and the years prior, finishing the bike lane in front of the Queens Midtown Tunnel. Any thoughts before I go on to the next topic?
Okay. I see Sandy has her hand raised.
Do you want to discuss this evening or should we just send in comments?
If you have some succinct comments, I think the board would benefit from them.
I feel the traffic is still incredibly bad around the Midtown Tunnel. And it is a kind of a sore spot for our community. And certainly if there's anything we can do to ameliorate that traffic and that congestion, it would be great to have it done. Thanks.
Thank you. And, okay, well, yeah, traffic is not great around the Queens Midtown Tunnel. It's a big area. Certainly the board can consider that as they rank, you know, some of the other traffic priorities that we have. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a quick comment. So there's some context behind this particular budget request. The original thing that we were doing is we were asking for traffic studies in the district. And in our request, we included detail about areas we thought were priority areas, but we were asking for budget money for traffic studies for a long time, money that would ostensibly go to DOT so that they can conduct the studies so that the studies would be funded. We did this for a long time and we didn't get responses from the city that indicated to us that this was ever going to happen with the requests that we had. And I think we were sort of prompted into either dropping the request or figuring out a way to put it so that it would make sense or that it would have a higher relevancy. Because I believe DOT was telling us that like, they don't think it's needed to be done, so they don't even want to do it. But I forget the exact details. I just know we were prompted to make a change here. So I think between our committee and the budget committee, we had some discussions and the compromise was that QMT has had so much construction around there that not only did we think that that was a great area to study in terms of a more holistic sense of like, that is pretty much one of the traffic trouble spots in the district. It is probably one of our highest priorities. We weren't only thinking about that, but we were thinking about MTA, DOT, DVC, all collaborating on all this construction and redesign, and that they might have had some stuff already in-house that they could give to us. So we decided to phrase it like this. And unfortunately, the result is that we keep getting blanked. I think this ties into a larger problem where we exist as an entity that we identify things that are not particularly expensive, that are probably already in process or involve information that's already kept in-house for these agencies. And we put out a request for it or we label it as a priority, and then we just get shut down for 10 straight years on it. And I think that this is one of the things where we are looking at this particular request as a glaring example of how our model is failing in terms of us requesting this stuff as a board, and how we need the electeds and the agencies to take what we're asking for way more seriously. But I do think that, the response further study is needed. I mean, again, this is something where they are doing so many modifications around there that it just doesn't even make sense to me that they wouldn't know what's going on with traffic in that area, that they've never studied it or that they've done no measurements. We're not even getting a partial out of DOT. I think that there's a lot of ways you could say this, where you could say maybe the moment is past or maybe it's not so high priority for it. I strongly recommend that you keep pressing for this, that this is something where it's not only relevant to us, but it's also something where we really strongly believe that the authorities have more insight than they're letting us on to. And I think we should keep fighting for it.
Thank you. There's probably precedent within the district for that conclusion. Keeping an eye on the clock, and what else? The other issue I'd like to touch upon without flushing out entirely is the 2nd Avenue subway. And this would be phase 3 of the 2nd Avenue subway. And given President Biden's American Jobs Plan, do we want to raise the ranking on phase 3 of the 2nd Avenue subway? His plan emphasized, better rail facilities, expanding them into different communities, upgrading them. So it falls well within some of the initiatives that he proposed. And I'd like some people's thoughts on whether we could upgrade this from item number 15 to perhaps something higher, with the hope that some of those funds would materialize. Thoughts?
Bill, first of all, it's usually the budget committee, if I remember right, that does the ranking. But secondly, you've got 4 questions, I believe. I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but you've got B's had her hand up for a while. Larry, Ann, and Brian wants. Brian, you had a pretty big bite of the apple the first time around. You really got something else?
I was just going to say what you just said about the budget committee deciding the priority. Also, it's in the top half of our priorities. It really, the ranking is not material here. I don't think we need to focus on that.
Okay, so you got.
But I mean, basically, the gist of it is that we want it to be highly ranked. It's going to come through as a super high priority for us where it is. I wouldn't worry about it being too far down the list.
Okay, so Phil, you've got questions from B, Larry, Ann, and Andrew.
So do you want me to go, Phil?
Yeah, in that order, please. B, Larry, Ann.
Okay, so I did want to, my hand was up on the Queens Midtown Tunnel, and I'll just comment, I support what Sandy and Brian said. It's an eyesore, it's a mess. I really support us looking at it and dealing with it. I agree that this will be a priority when you read the infrastructure plan. I think the budget committee will keep it as that. I don't think we need to debate it. I think it will be perceived by everyone, especially those of us that are on the budget committee. So I wouldn't waste a lot of time. This is a shovel-ready project that would go very well with the infrastructure plan.
Larry, thank you, B.
Keeping the Second Avenue subway project going is really critically important. The planning has to continue. If it isn't going on right now, it really needs to start up so that when the second phase is completed, the third phase will be shovel ready, and you won't have to stand down personnel and rehire them in order to get that third phase started. Timing is critical. That's why we have to keep it prioritized.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah. As I'm thinking about it, I think that we don't need to overthink the Second Avenue subway, because I think that like Pete Buttigieg and Biden are going to do what they want to do with the Second Avenue subway. And I think that the projects that we really need locally are the ones that are not going to get looked at. So I actually think it's a bit of reverse psychology here. I think that we should focus on and prioritize like things like B said, like the Queens Midtown Tunnel, because that's the stuff that like we actually need to fight for. My view is let the bureaucrats in DC decide on the multi-billion-dollar projects that we're going to have no control over anyway.
I think that's very reasonable. Anyone else?
Okay,
I'm not going to discuss any more budgets unless someone. Excuse me, Jane.
That looks like a wrap. Thanks, Phil. Well done. And thank you guys for your comments. Very on point, I thought. Okay, chair's report. Not very much. Sam Schwartz Engineering has embarked on the mission that we gave them. They'll be coming back to us with 3 designs and various other aspects of what they suggested doing. And we'll be showing it to you for comments and feedback in May. That's pretty much it. No old or new business. Andrew.
I just wanted to say, Gene, get well. And I want to congratulate you on dropping a Greek mythology reference. Just want to thank you for that.
Thanks. Yeah, and I've been saving it for years, just waiting for the right moment.
It did not go unnoticed. Did not go unnoticed.
Appreciate that. Okay, so no old or new business. Do I see a motion to do anything like get out of here?
Motion to adjourn and for you to get well.
Thank you. I'll take those
Here.
separate motions, or maybe the same one. I don't know. Appreciate that. So listen, have a good night. I'm going to go find out. I hear my wife periodically yelling in the living room at the television. So I'm hoping that means good things for the Mets, but I'll find out in about 1.5 minutes when I go up there. Thank you all. It was another one of those meetings that had a couple of rough spots, but I think we got a lot done. And the Union Square plan in particular is something that I think is a kind of a vision for the future, that no matter how we think it needs to be tweaked this way or that, I think we can agree that it's an enormous improvement over the way we look at people doing business when they're called DDC and DOT and they're dealing with something called the ESCR. They're looking at a future, not at like how to keep things back in the 19th century. I'm sorry, Andrew.
I just wanted to say, I don't know if someone said this before, I just think it's great that NYPD stayed for the entire meeting to actually listen to what we're talking about. Thanks, Captain. Just throwing that. That's
absolutely
really
Thank
good.
you,
No problem. I listen to everything.
Okay, well, you know, what can I tell you? We really appreciate that, and you're a glutton for punishment. Thank you. Okay, meeting's adjourned, folks. Have a good night. See you.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.